Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
You know, there's no room for petty bull.
That's right, Billy Guerin. You tell them. You tell them no room for petty BS. There's also no room for a lack of predictions when you are doing a show a day before the Wild drops the puck on the regular season against the Rangers, who actually opened on Tuesday night. We, Judd Zulgad, Declan Goff, come to you with a write that down version of Judd's Hockey Show. So instead of doing the ordinary predictions and going back and forth on points and, you know, all that cliche boring stuff. Penalty minute. Well, PIMs are great. I'd love to do some PIMs. We can if we want. But what we're going to do is we are going to spend this show giving you 5 write that down predictions apiece for the Wild. Well, I guess if you wanted to do National Hockey League, you certainly could as well. But Declan Goff, without further ado, and with the season about to start, and with the TNT hockey bed, which is
so glad. Great bed.
Such a great song.
Great bed.
Such a great song. I will say this. ESPN got off to a far better start last night than they did last year. The sound on Sean McDonough's mic worked, so you could hear him. They're still not. They come, as far as studio shows go, nowhere close to Turner, but that's a whole nother story. All right, so I want you to start. What is your first write that down prediction for the
2000? Write it down. You like writing things down.
22-23 campaign.
All right, so I'll start, I guess, slowly, and then build my way up to more hotter predictions. That's my philosophy. Judd Zulgad can go with his philosophy.
Yep.
That's how I'm playing my 200-foot game. However, Judd wants to play a one-way or a two-way or a back-way game. That's on Judd Zulgad. This is my way of going about the predictions. I just want that on the record.
So is what you're going to do.
Yeah. I'll start with this one, Judd. Write this down.
Write this down.
The Wild will be a 100-point team again. So the Wild will make it to 100 points. Now, I'm seeing mostly FanDuel's, sports books, analytics suggesting that they should be a 100-point team again. Yep. But you never know. Regression can happen. 100 points in back-to-back seasons would be pretty impressive for the Wild. I don't believe they've ever done that. And if they have, maybe once before, maybe the first 2 years under Boudreau, but I don't even know if they got to 100 the second year. But it's a rarity to get to 100 points. And when you lose Kevin Fiala, when you're cap-strapped like this, it's impressive that the depth and the prospects that they have built. So again, I'm starting slowly, and I'm going to build out to other bigger predictions. But my first little just tap into the neutral zone, into the offensive zone, is the Wild will be a 100-point team again in 2022-23.
All right, I'm going to take your prediction, and you can write this down. I'm going to raise the stakes because I'm going to give you a three-pronged part of the prediction.
Parlay?
Three-part parlay. Three-part parlay, which also plays off of what you just said. All right, the Wild they will not have as many points as they did last season, but they will, I agree with you, be a 100-point team. In fact, they will have 102 points. They will finish with exactly 102 points. In examining this division, I actually, once I started to really look at the division, I don't like it as much as I thought I did when the season came to an end. It's not as strong as I thought. So, not only will they have 102 points, they will finish second again to the Colorado Avalanche. They will finish second because until Colorado, so Kadri being gone hurts them, but until they fall off the table a little bit, I just can't put the Wild above them. And the third part, the big part, is they will get out of the first round of the playoffs. They will get to the second round this season.
Wow, so you a 3-item parlay,
so 102 points,
one parlay. Wow, yeah.
102 points, second in the Central to the Avalanche, and they will get to the second round of the playoffs.
Write this down.
All right, my second prediction then. I'll go with this one. Kirill Kaprizov will score at least 50 goals. Give me 50 goals for Kirill Kaprizov this season. So Kirill, again, the over-under at 46.5 this year. I think he's truly becoming one of the best goal scorers, if not one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. He's getting MVP love consideration. Wouldn't surprise me if he was in that Hart Trophy race by the end of this season. He had 47 last year in 81 games. He's basically been a point-per-game player, above it, throughout 136 NHL career games. He obviously played a ton in Russia, so yeah, he's not like a true young rookie like Matt Boldy, who's still only 21, 22, but the guy is an absolute game breaker. Give me 50 goals for Kirill Kaprizov in 2022-23.
All right, I agree with that. And what he had 47 last year, so certainly not a stretch that he could get to that mark. Fiala being gone might mean more goals too. So
Sure.
yes, I think you are actually that's a huge number, but I think you're on solid ground to suggest it. All right, I'm going to go away from Kirill, but I'm going to go with a forward, a young dynamic forward on this Wild team. And you can write this down. You can take it to the bank.
Write it down. You like writing
Blood
things
bank,
down.
as Steven Seagal once said. Marco Rossi will win the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year. Marco Rossi will win. I'm going out on a ledge here. I'm going out on a limb here. But I really like this kid. As you saw on Twitter on Saturday night for the final preseason game that the Wild played against the Dallas Stars at the X, Sports Dad took the field glasses. And the field glasses were used to track Rossi as closely as I possibly could during his shifts. And here's what I saw.
I got mine in the bag too. I'm bringing them tomorrow.
I love the field glasses. I saw a young man who is strong. Like, I think the year, so he definitely came to camp a year ago, right? Coming off the COVID scare and the myocarditis scare, and he definitely, I don't want to say he was weak, but he definitely wasn't at full strength, right? Well, he has spent a year, I think, not only getting his strength back, but against the men who play in the National Hockey League, he looks like he belongs. He is a multi-talented player. I do not believe he is going to stay on a lesser line for long. I think that there's going to be a rise for him. And so I believe that this guy, who, keep in mind is a high draft pick, high first-round pick, will be the Calder Trophy. I believe it will be the Wild's second Rookie of the Year within 3 years, because Kirill got it a couple of years ago. Marco Rossi is the Rookie of the Year, and I think a primary contributor to what I'm talking about, which is 102 points and a second-place finish.
Yeah, and Boldy does not qualify because he played
this
enough
down.
games last season, so he does not qualify for the
Correct.
Calder Trophy for this season, because I know some people were
He could have won
suggesting
it.
that. He had a case. He definitely had a case.
Yeah,
With Rossi winning the award, Judd, I think the only way that happens is if he gets an elevated role. Like, he won't win the Calder Trophy playing fourth line. And he's going to open, most likely, potentially in a bottom six role and maybe graduate towards a higher end role. I think that's obviously the goal for Marco Rossi. He was a 10th overall pick or a top 10 pick, and he has a very, 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 very bright future. But I think he'd have to be elevated into a significant role to get that to happen.
If I'm not mistaken, on Saturday against the Dallas Stars, the line that I think he's going to end up on very quickly was the Boldy, Goudreau, Sam Steele line.
Yeah.
And Sam Steele is a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
He is
Nice
a
guy.
placeholder. He is a guy who has
Great guy.
been... Well, no, and you know what? He might be a fourth-line guy, and he might be good. I have no idea. But Marco Rossi shouldn't be good. Marco Rossi should be very good to a potential star-like player. And so I think the logic says if Marco Rossi makes the impact that I think he can, Dex, that we'll see a pretty quick transition to where he will take the place on that line, and that will get him to the place that you're talking about, because you're right, he's not going to win the Calder Trophy if he is playing on a bottom or in a bottom six role.
Write it down. You like writing things down.
All right, my next prediction, Judd Zulgad. I've been buying this guy's stock for the last few months now, and I actually was very high on him when he was first acquired here. So write this down. Tyson Jost will set a career high in points and will score at least 20 goals this season with the Minnesota Wild. So Jost's career high is 22 points. His career high in goals is 12. He did that actually as a 19-year-old in Colorado when they were kind of really bad and trying to still figuring things out. So a low bar to clear, but also I'm projecting that this guy is going to finally have an explosion, be the guy that who was supposed to be one of the better prospects in the NHL about 5 years ago when he was drafted 10th overall. You got a tamer prediction maybe on the surface, but at the same time, I think this is a guy who steps in and is able to score some big goals for you. And he's finally getting out of that, again, fourth line role where he's carved out a nice career there at Colorado, and that's fine. He did the same thing here at the Wild. But I think Tyson Jost has had a very strong camp. I heard our friend of the show, Bill Guerin, come on here and say the exact same things with us last week, that he's been very impressed with his start as well. I think 20 goals and a career high in points for Tyson Jost is on the table, so write that down.
Write this down.
All right, let's stop right there. Let's examine that statement, because, yes, on the surface, I mean, I do think Jost is a good player. He definitely had a good camp, and it's not like you're saying he's going to score, 45 goals. But let's examine what you're talking about there, because I think there's a very interesting conversation, because much like we just said about Rossi, Dex, if he is to achieve the success that we think that he can now that he's going to get a chance and has matured as a player, the question is, where's it going to come from? Because opening night, he's obviously going to be, again, the presumed placeholder for Jordan Greenway with Eriksson, Ek, and Foligno. But that being said, if he gets demoted, then he's not going to have the success you're talking about. So I'm sort of with you. I like this. It feels like the Wild has set up this internal competition that's going to be a little bit below the surface, but I love it. And I guess my question is, when Greenway comes back, is that his job just to have back? If Jost is playing well, does he keep that job and Jordan starts in a role where he has to earn his spot back? Because that's the one thing is, Tyson Jost is going to have to play a role that's going to allow him to have the success you're talking about. Where's that going to be? And if he fits in with the Ek line, does Greenway not get that job back? Because that's the assumption, right? But, I mean, this is sports. Shouldn't make assumptions. Your thoughts?
Yeah, this is a similar thing. And unfortunately, injuries will happen where, maybe if Greenway comes back, Zuccarello gets hurt, right? Or maybe Boldy gets knocked down. It's always, yes, you want your teams to always stay healthy. I know, but like that's kind of how opportunities are created. It happens in baseball all the time. Like, how do I fit this prospect? How do I fit this guy in there? Unfortunately, what happens usually is an injury happens, and that guy takes that person's place. So, yes, I don't want the injury to one of those guys, but I think Tyson Jost is forcing their hand a little bit. And Jordan Greenway's a nice player. He developed a nice chemistry on the Foligno and Ek line, but he's not really a driver of offense. He's not going to be a guy that scores a ton of goals. It's just not really who he is. I think he's a very productive player who can throw his weight around and be a very good defensive forward, but I think Tyson Jost's offensive ceiling still hasn't been reached yet. We don't know what that is. So I think that's why I look at him as a guy who will set a career high in points and get to at least 20 goals this season.
All right. My next, write that down. I'm going to bypass forwards.
Okay.
I'm going to bypass the blue line, and I'm going to go right to the cage, in goal.
Yep.
Write this down. Wishful thinking, perhaps, but Marc-Andre Fleury will have a goals against below 2.3 and a save percentage of .920 or higher in 50 to 55 games. By comparison, last year, in 45 games split between a horrible Blackhawks team and here, when he was acquired at the trade deadline, his goals against was 2.9, his save percentage .908. Here it was .274, and a save percentage in 11 games in the regular season of .910. So Marc-Andre Fleury, I'm putting him on a season not comparable to a couple of years ago when he won, when he was so great with the Golden Knights and was the Vezina Trophy winner. But still, Declan, 2.3 save percentage of .920, and he does start 50 to 55 games, which would be a very productive regular season.
I like it. I also have a Marc-Andre Fleury one. And look, goaltenders can play into their older ages. Martin Brodeur was an Iron Man. I know he might be the shining example, but even Dominik Hasek, as he wrapped up his tenure with Buffalo and went to Detroit and kind of took on a more of a split role there, but still was a very productive goaltender. Marc-Andre, I think a big thing for him is being comfortable. And last year was such a rocky situation. He almost retired, right? He was shipped off from Vegas to Chicago. That was a terrible team. He had to waive his clause to basically come here. He gets a 2-year contract. I think that now he's a lot more comfortable that you're going to see a closer Marc-Andre Fleury. So write this down, Judd. So, yeah.
All right.
Marc-Andre Fleury returns to Vezina form this season with the Wild. And if we want to quantify this, that he is a Vezina finalist, fine, go for it. Sure, we can do it that way.
Do it. Say it. Take it up.
He'll be a Vezina finalist. Ooh. He will be a Vezina finalist this season. That might be at 55, 60 games, but I think now that he's comfortable again,
that's fine.
He's going to settle right back in and be the goaltender that, won a Vezina going into this time last year. He was the reigning Vezina winner going into last season with Chicago. He won that award as a 36-year-old. He is one of the most decorated goalies of all time. He's one of the most all-time winningest goalies of all time. He is playoff tested. I think now that he is here at the Wild, he has his contract, he knows who he's playing for, he's not going anywhere, he can have his family settled in, that you're going to see a goaltender who is going to be very good and back to the form that he was with at the beginning years of Vegas and obviously during his tenure with Pittsburgh as well. I think Marc-Andre Fleury settles in and returns to Vezina form this season with the Minnesota Wild. Write it down.
All right. Yeah, and the thing, too, is this defensive core is good. It's solid. I mean, I don't think we could appreciate how bad the Blackhawks were last year unless we watched them on a game-by-game basis. So, yes, I think with this blue line core and the structure in front of him for an entire season, and to your point, being comfortable, I think that he has one of the reasons why I sort of rethought my initial statements and put this team on a successful season is because I think the goaltending will be solid. I don't know I trust the backups totally, but I do think you're right. I think Flower rebounds and plays very well. All right. Write this down.
All right.
Write this one down. This is my fourth prediction.
Okay.
Kirill Kaprizov will be top 3 in Hart Trophy voting. MVP.
So a finalist.
So he will be a finalist. I don't know he gets it. The competition is so tough. I mean, it's ordinarily McKinnon, McDavid. You just go through that litany, Matthews, of outstanding players. But what I am saying is, if nothing else, he will move one of those guys aside. He will move them out of the top 3 and be a finalist for the MVP of this league. And I think it starts with your first prediction for today's JHS. Write that down. I think it starts with a 50-plus goal season.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing about this guy's game where I'm like, oh boy, that's probably it, or it's good, but like there's no but with this kid's game. I mean, he is just outstanding. He's dominant on the puck. And so, yes, Kirill Kaprizov will get into that finalist, the top 3 for the MVP of the National Hockey League this season.
I like it.
Write this down.
All right, my final prediction, Judd, my 5th and final prediction. So I've had some individual stats here. I've had a team stat off the top, so let me just wrap it up with this one. The Wild will get to the Western Conference Finals this season.
Okay.
I think they get out of the first round. I think they knock off their pesky brother, the Colorado Avalanche, in the semifinals, and they get to the conference finals, Judd.
Boy.
I have another prediction on Colorado I'm actually going to save for our full strength version of Write That Down that I really want to get out there because I did some digging on this, and I think it's a little crazy. But I think the Wild finally get out of the first round. I think they have the tools to make a playoff run. Hockey is random. Hockey is very, very random. No matter how many times you want to project how good a Colorado Avalanche could be or how good Toronto could be, you just never know. You just sometimes never know. It's the greatest playoffs in all of sports that we don't talk about enough, but it's random. You have to get things right. You had the Tampa Bay Lightning 4 years ago who had the best season of all time in the regular season. They were bounced in 5 games by Columbus. You never know what's going to happen, but I think the Wild indeed get to the conference finals this year. They have the horses to do so. And hell, maybe they make a trade at the deadline. Maybe they do something again where Bill Guerin is able to finesse something and bring in some extra pieces here that get them over the hump. But I think the Wild will get to the Western Conference Finals this season.
That is a bold prediction considering this team's playoff past. That is a very bold. I'm willing to get them to the second round. I don't know that I can get them to the conference finals yet. I like them more than I thought I would. I will say that.
Yeah, I did too.
I like them more than I thought I would, and I think that's in part because I don't like the Central as much as I thought I did. I've reevaluated there. So, but yeah, Western Conference Finals. Now, so you're not gonna. So you do you have them? Just to be very clear here, because I've got them getting to the second round, but beyond that, do you have them getting to the Western Conference Finals and potentially advancing, or are you saying with that prediction that you're ending their season in the conference finals?
I won't say I'll end their season in the conference finals because I don't want to be that guy, but I think they get to the conference finals. No, I don't want to. You're trying to bait me, and that's
not negative to have them losing in the Western Conference Finals.
You're trying to bait me though into saying that that's where their ceiling is, and no, I'm not going down that road.
Well, that's a hell of a ceiling.
It is a hell of a ceiling.
I will say off both of our playoff points, I will say this: one of the most interesting things, and it's going to affect his future, that we are going to see is how much does Dean Evison help this team if and when they're in the playoffs. Okay. Because he had a terrible playoff.
The adjustments
and just everything that worked. And, I think the continuity worked in the regular season decks. I think a lot of what Dean did in the regular season last year worked really well. And I really like him as a coach. And I think him being just a guy who definitely makes his point, but leaves the locker room to the players in season is smart. But a lot of things that worked in the regular season didn't work in the playoffs. So yeah, I am very, very curious to see what he does, what he learned, because I contend that coaching in the playoffs is incredibly important. Like you have to change lines, you have to have the right message, you've got to know when to potentially yank a struggling goaltender, right? Like they probably like. The one I don't like how Talbot's time came to an end here on Talbot's part, but I will say this: I do understand the frustration of being thrown in there in that last game. Like if you felt, hell, Berube yanked his guy after game 1, right?
Yeah, 2.
He changed 2, and went to Bennington at that point. So everything Berube did, I hope Dean was taking notes on.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, you're probably... Dean didn't lose the first round, but he sure as hell didn't help them. And Berube didn't win it, but he sure as hell helped the Blues. We got a tutorial. Craig Berube gave us a tutorial. All right. My final write that down is not nearly as sexy as yours, but I believe it to be important. We have heard and we have seen that the Wild... In fact, I was mocked by the GM, that the Wild is going to work... or is working very hard on its special teams. Power play, very big disappointment. The personnel there is being changed. Addison is now going to run the point on the power play, which is a big switch for a guy that just basically, for the first time, made the team full-time and switched from 59 to 2 because now he is assured of a spot here. He wears number 2. But I'm going to go with the penalty kill. And write this down, Declan. The Wild will finish top 5 in the NHL in penalty kill. Now, to give you an idea of the jump, last season, this team was 25th at 76.1% kill. Okay, 25th in a 32-team league now. So they were bad. They were not passable.
They were bad.
They are going to finish 5th. They're going to score some goals. In fact, we saw, I think, the Rangers' first goal in their game last night against Tampa Bay, shorthanded. They are going to score some shorties, but more importantly, they're going to kill a lot of penalties, and it's going to make a difference. The Wild will finish top 5 in penalty kill.
All right. I thought you were going to maybe make a penalty kill like how many goals they were going to score or something. But
now that's hard. That's so hard to predict. I do think that with how they're playing, that they will score some shorties.
Sure.
But I also think that with a far more proactive, and penalty kill is hard work too. So like a power play, nuance, skill, right? A penalty kill is basically playing hard and being smart. And the lazy attempts to clear last season drove you absolutely crazy because that's what they are. They're lazy attempts to clear. I'm not saying that the team is lazy, but the clears were not sufficient. So I think they take a huge step in penalty kill, and I think that makes that makes a big difference in Marc-Andre Fleury statistics.
I agree. Historically, they've had a very good penalty kill. They've usually historically been very staunch on the penalty kill. Last season, was a little weird. They just couldn't figure it out. Special teams in general, last season was a huge disappointment. Both sides, power play and penalty kill.
Wrong people playing at times.
So we'll see what happens. But I like it. I think going back in the top 5 is definitely plausible. So I dig it. I got them writing down.
Yes, and on the power play, the Addison thing is huge. Don't overlook that. And I know that he's a third pairing D-man, so he's not, it's not like he is when the team is at even strength going to be as big a guy. But on the penalty or on the power play, him at the point, because I never really felt, Dex, last year, like the Wild had the right guy running the point. I'm not sure about you. But I felt like their feeling was this should work, and it didn't work, and they didn't really know what to do.
Right.
You need a dynamic guy who's good and knows what he's doing there. So yes.
Yeah, and I think Kalen Addison can do that for them. Yeah, I'm excited to watch that penalty kill. Let's go.
All right, it's here. Rangers tomorrow. So and last thing is this team, unlike the Wolves, opens with a damn gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
Rangers home opener Thursday. Mm-hmm. Kings and Fiala on Saturday. And by the way, Kings, do not wear those helmets that you wore last night against the Golden Knights. Those C-3PO looking things. Those are the ugliest things I've ever seen. You look like you're Martians. Don't wear those. Colorado, and then Vancouver. So 3 playoff teams, and a team that when Boudreau got the job almost got into the playoffs. Those are your first 4 games, all at home, but all difficult. So I am excited. Let's get going. Let's drop the puck.
Yeah, first road test, too, against the Boston Bruins. So, bring it on, baby. Bring it on.
So we'll do a show Friday?
Yeah, we'll do a Friday
recap.
Show. We'll recap the opener. Yeah, that's probably safe to say.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. All right, Dex, fill in the blanks, and we'll be done.
Hit the subscribe button. Judd's Hockey Show is back at full strength. You can hold us accountable. Comment on the YouTube video below maybe your predictions. I won't be able to log all those. But, if you want to join in on the fun, you can. Judd has his North Star pucks and his memorabilia. He's basically a walking nerd with all the stuff he's got.
I'm a huge nerd. I'm a huge geek.
Huge nerd. So hit the subscribe button. Daily Minnesota Sports Entertainment. This is Judd's Hockey Show, where we remind you to pass, shoot, score.